All right, welcome to GothCast.
Starring?
I'm Dr. Sanders.
I'm just Bryan.
That's who it's starring.
That's who it's starring.
Anyway, welcome
Starring
to GothCast.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Welcome to GothCast. I'm Dr. Sanders.
I'm just Bryan.
And today, we are bringing you part 2. And actually, you know what's funny? It's probably the quickest part 2 I've ever done on this podcast. Because typically, anytime I do part 2, it's like months later.
Maybe years even.
So yeah, it has been. Yeah, I think with Marilyn Manson and I don't even think I've done part 2 of 9 Inch Nails yet at all. Or I know Skinny Puppy's one I get all the time, and let alone like all the Christian deaths, like more of those parts. People are always requesting the next Valor Canned era episode. Yeah. Anyway,
we're not turning over a new leaf. We're just doing this because it's convenient.
Yes, because we just happen to be on a Psycho marathon kind of thing. And we were like, well, hey, we're already watching these anyway. Why not just deal with this right now?
Keep rolling.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're going to be taking a look at the Psycho series yet again. You know, because last episode we do Psycho 1, 2, and 3. And some really good stuff, some okay to bad stuff. And when we left off with Psycho 3, the series was not the best.
It was in trouble.
Yeah, it just basically went from being a classic Alfred Hitchcock film to a really, really good early 80s sequel. Surprisingly, Psycho 2 is amazing.
Yeah.
And then Psycho 3 is, well, it's just a slasher movie that has Norman Bates in it. I mean, pretty much. I mean, if it wasn't Psycho, it would just be a generic movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Slasher, sex sells,
God,
movie.
That's like the weirdest. I still think that is some of the weirdest stuff in that film. Like, why is this so sexual?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to see some of those elements, especially the very, very sexual nature, continue in some of these things.
It's not as pronounced though.
No, that was like the most.
Well,
we'll
get to that.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought about it, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, anyway, today we're going to be talking about the 1980s made-for-television movie Bates Motel. Okay, so this you heard me right. If you're not familiar with the series, there was a 1980s television film called Bates Motel. Then we're going to take a look at Psycho 4, which is the next movie released, and that was 1990. And then we're taking a look at 2013 is when it started, but continued for a number of years. We're taking a look at that version of Bates Motel. Very weird time. I mean, this is a very weird franchise. I mean, just from the time they made a sequel.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So imagine it's 1987.
1987. Okay, a year ago we just saw Psycho 3 in theaters.
Your franchise is struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
So you try and get some names to put in your movie. Who do you get?
I mean, if I had to say 1987, I mean, probably the biggest star I could think of all time, it would probably be Bud Cort from Harold and Maude.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, Bud Cort, Harold and Maude, fantastic job in Harold and Maude.
Great
film. Yeah.
I love it. They have the Jaguar hearse? Yeah. That's like amazing. No, so good.
And then, if it was up to me, I'd pick a guy I knew in the future would end up doing a lot of good stuff. I'd pick Jason Bateman.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the dream.
I would just go like, who's going to be successful in the future? Jason Bateman.
Much further in the future.
Yeah, we got to give him a good part so that 20, 30 years from now, he can have a successful career.
Yeah. You don't want him to be stuck. You don't want him to be arrested. You get it.
Along those, along those same lines, John Carroll Lynch. Yeah, let's give him a bit part.
Yep. Let's do it.
Is make him a construction worker and have him talk trash about the property.
Hey, you know who else would be good to have a 1987 Psycho TV film?
Who?
Tank Girl.
Oh, yeah. No, Tank Girl. Yeah. Lori Petty.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, I'm friends with Lori Petty on Facebook.
Are you friends with Lori Petty on Facebook?
I don't know how many times I've told you that.
Yeah.
But, this is one more.
Yeah. There's a recurring joke that me and Bryan have about that. Is he always says, anytime I mention Lori Petty or like, hey, Tank Girl or something, like, oh yeah, I was like looking at the comic, or he's like, hey, I'm friends with Lori Petty on Facebook. And it's been like 5 years since I think I first heard you say that.
I love Lori Petty. I love Lori Petty. That was the main reason I could continue to watch this movie, was to see what happened to Lori Petty next.
Yeah. Well, that's essentially that gets us into this. So this movie, I'll tell you, I mean, that is a pretty interesting cast, and not a lot of bad actors necessarily, but man, they are in this movie at some points. I'll tell you that. But this movie, first of all, okay, if you want to watch this movie, it wasn't available for a lot of years on a physical format. I remember years ago trying to watch this, and it was only just like the bootlegs that had been out there and then have been transferred to, YouTube and stuff, or, for a long time. And then all of a sudden it was included on like Psycho Collections, where they transferred it to tape, transferred like the version of it. And then now you can watch it in probably the best quality you could hope for.
Yeah.
But it's that at least you can watch it now. Do I recommend it? I'm just gonna be very honest. No.
There's a little bit of good acting that goes on in this movie, but yeah, I was watching it halfway through with a friend, and they said Lori Petty was the only good part of the movie. Yeah. But I have to say that there's a woman who plays a ghost who does a great acting job as well.
That was pretty cool. I mean, yeah. So the basic story is that there's this guy named Alex. They do have the flashback sequence in this film. Like I said, TV film. This was a way to try and make a mainstream version of Psycho. Attempted to be a television show, but that got canned, and so they basically took it and turned it into a movie. And it totally feels very sitcom-y, like they have more planned, or it's like, every week it might have been like Twilight Zone-ish episodes or something. I don't know, like trying to mess around with the idea. That's what it feels.
Oh yeah, it absolutely feels like they had a bunch of ideas, but they're just trying to cram too much different things in all at once.
Yeah.
And it's like too much is happening without anything actually happening.
Yeah. So like the main story is there's this guy named Alex, and he has been institutionalized, and he just happens to be in the same place that Norman Bates has been institutionalized. And he kind of grows up, and he's like, my best friend is Norman Bates, and Norman dies. So the intro of this, they explain like, Norman Bates is dead and whatever. And then he leaves Bates Motel to Alex. And inside of his will, Norman says, well, I leave it to you with the condition that you go and you restore it and you make it like a great motel again. And Alex is just like, okay, I'll just go restore Bates Motel. And then a whole bunch of hijinks and montages later. It's sort of successful, and there's also like weird ghosts from another dimension that are there's
a weird suicide PSA kind of thing going on in the middle of the movie.
There's definitely some like really heavy-handed like life means so much, everybody. And yeah, but that's the basic plot. A friend of Norman's, when he was institutionalized, inherits Bates Motel when Norman dies. And you would think like, this is probably in the tone and style of Psycho. Like, it's probably a little creepy, a little suspenseful. This thing's just like a TV sitcom. I mean, like, there are some like pretty serious moments, but most of it is shot and just really weird tone to the thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The characters' lines don't necessarily match their motivation. At the end, like, Alex breaks the fourth wall randomly, like starts talking to the viewer, and I don't know, it's just like really weird choices of how they did it.
That was really weird. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that's really strange. I thought that was like, wait, what? Like, because that's what I was saying. It kind of lends. It makes me believe that they were trying to do something like the Twilight Zone, where every week there's like a weird thing that happens, and
he's given like a end of episode recap.
Yeah, but they never made any more of this. But he comes on, and Bug Court, like, it came on the whole entire special. He doesn't talk to the camera. It's like a movie. And then at the very end, there's like this resolution with this woman, and it's like, it does a whole thing about like, well, when you're at the Bates Motel, who knows what can happen? You stay safe out there, sort of thing.
We sure learned a lot today.
I know.
Like what?
It
what
was
is
just
this?
so weird. I was, what is happening here?
Yeah.
But there is a lot of kind of comedic moments in this, or their attempt at comedy, and some things that are funny without it being intentionally funny.
Yeah.
Do you have like the whole chicken thing and the fast food thing, and like the surfer dude, bro, chicken guy? Just even Lori Petty, the way she acts and the way she talks, she's like, "Yeah, come on, let's fix up the Bates Motel." Like, I was like, what is happening in this movie?
I've got a little bit of a fun trivia fact about one of Lori Petty's lines, who I'm friends with on Facebook.
Yeah.
She references the Department of Water and Power in the movie, which is the antagonist in Tank Girl in the movie Tank Girl 1995 release. So a little bit of unbeknownst to her foreshadowing of her future career there.
Yeah, it's like that always remind, like another one that I know of that seems to be really unintentional, but I always think about is, Romancing the Stone.
Yeah.
There's a line where Danny DeVito is like, "Who do you think you are?" or something like Batman, like whatever. I'm like, wait a second, it's something like that where he like references Batman. He's like, and then of course years later he's
Penguin.
Obviously Penguin.
Yeah,
it's a really good one. But I don't know what to think about this movie. I really wanted to like this movie. I mean, obviously we really enjoy the Psycho series, but man, this was hard to watch.
It was pretty bad.
Like I saw on IMDb when I pulled it up, it was like 3.8 or something on IMDb, and I was like, dang, that's really bad.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. Because I had seen this, when I first bought the Psycho collection, years ago. I watched it, and I was also at the time, I was having some health issues, so I wasn't paying that much attention to it, but I thought, it's kind of whatever. Now, seeing that clearly, I'm like, it's total garbage.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because they had an opportunity to do something great with it, even though the choice of the main character, Alex, casting wise, it's kind of a weird choice. Lori Petty, even though she acted weird in the movie, like she definitely has a good presence, on camera. But I just think that they just had too many things they were trying to do, like scope creep,
Well, and the characters also just seemed out of character for the franchise. It's like one of the biggest issues. It's just like,
and we see that problem again in the other Bates Motel later on.
Brian, we're talking about Psycho series would never work, especially one named Bates Motel.
Yeah. Yeah. They shouldn't do that again.
I know.
Just, Psycho 5 next, please.
Oh, man. I love it. Psycho, it's like instead of being like the V, it's like the dashes and like the slash across them.
Oh, yeah.
Psycho. Bum, bum,
and
bum, bum.
Yeah, they make the slashes look like they're all ripped and ragged, like from a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we're on something here. Yeah. I just.
Now, if they use that, we can sue them.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Oh, there we go. It's like I remember years ago, there was a guy who I watched who predicted that the next Rambo, because he was talking about like poorly named things, and this is like right when stuff started to just be named the same thing. Nowadays it's always like probably if they come out with the new Die Hard, it'd be called Die Hard Again or something like that. But he predicted, he's like, yeah, what are they gonna do with the next Rambo? It's like we had Rambo, we had First Blood, then we had Rambo First Blood Part 2. He's like, then we had Rambo 3. He's like, what are they gonna do? Call it Rambo? And then the new one came out. He's like, it's called Rambo. He's like, oh, what the heck? And then of course Rocky, did the same thing. Whereas it's called Rocky Balboa.
Yeah.
So it's like Rocky 1 through 5, Creed, Rocky Balboa. It's like what the heck happened? Like it's just so weird. But this, I wanted to like this so bad, but it just takes forever to get going too. It feels like Alex is wandering around the city forever, and then trying to get alone, and then it has a Scooby-Doo moment.
Yeah,
where they're like there's Mrs. Bates is haunting the place and trying to scare away all people, and then you literally have a Scooby-Doo moment where they're like, it's the banker.
Yeah,
and he was trying to scare everyone away, so then he didn't have to give the loan for the. I'm like, what is going on in this thing?
I was literally like doing the MST3K thing to the movie and going
yeah?
like, oh, it was Old Man Jenkins, like
Yeah.
the whole time.
And then and then Brian isn't joking. There is like a weird PSA sort of like, what did we learn today thing where there's a woman who wants to commit suicide because she's getting older and she's like, oh, my prom was like the best time of my life and like I'll never get any better. Like the past version of her and like the guy she liked come into the Bates Motel, and then she like learns a lesson about life. And the guy's Jason Bateman, like that's who the young guy is. And then she's like, oh well, now I want to live, whatever. It's like, what is happening in this?
Yeah,
it's like has elements of Twilight Zone, it has elements of Scooby-Doo, it has elements of like a typical sitcoms of time. It has a montage of them fixing up the Bates Motel that's like set to cheesy 80s music.
Oh yeah, it's like it's not only cheesy 80s music, it's cheesy 80s music that's like country music guitar that's synthesized for some reason.
Exactly.
It's just like, what? Why this choice of music? Like just so weird.
Yeah.
So many different things crammed together that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
There was 15 minutes left of the movie, and they're like introducing new plot elements.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, how are they going to resolve this in the next 15 minutes with everything else that they've like included here? Like, it just doesn't work. Especially
that ending part with the woman. That's what I really think that they were starting to make an actual TV show, and they just like were like, well, just throw it in at the end. We need it to just be this long. It almost seems like you could almost split it into 3 different episodes, and it probably makes sense. But it's like they just crammed it all into just one movie.
Yep.
It was terrible. I'm glad we talked about it in depth because it was just, I don't want people to go watch it. It was so bad.
Don't bother.
It was I don't know. I mean, sometimes whenever you watch or listen to stuff for GothCast, I'm just like, yeah, okay, that was kind of rough. I'm glad like people don't have to listen to that, or you feel like sometimes you're saving them to the time. I feel like I've absolutely saved you the time of having to watch this thing.
Yep.
And then also Bud Cort's hairline is extremely scary inside of this particular movie.
I really, really like Bud Cort, but not in this movie.
It was terrible. I mean, it was just rough. It was rough. And by the way, also a piece of trivia is Bud Cort is also inside of The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, the Wes Anderson film. It's pretty cool. I wouldn't have anywhere to throw that in unless we reviewed Harold and Maude one day. But
who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So I thought I would throw that in here. God. Anyway, that's Bates Motel. Don't watch it even if you can.
It's on YouTube. If you want to torture yourself.
Yeah.
Or throw something in the background at a
If you want it in the highest quality, buy it on DVD or I don't know if it's on Blu-ray, but it's on DVD definitely.
Even DVD, it's not very good.
No, it's
quality.
terrible. Yeah. Even the DVD looks like they just transferred from a TV tape. It was bad. It was just terrible.
And we would know because we've transferred to many, many, many tapes.
That's right, we did. Yeah, we used to do that. Oh, God. So many tapes. Anyway, that was the 1980s Bates Motel. Brian, are we going to be seeing another Bates Motel soon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple years.
All right, let's take a look. We're going to have a detour.
Yeah.
First, we're going to do Riggs. That's what I'm assuming I put right here?
Yeah, we'll put Riggs in.
Right here. Hey, Brian, you know what time it is?
Yes, I do. It's time for Riggs, Donnie.
That's right.
What does it stand for?
Random, interesting goth stuff.
I never knew.
Wait a second. Yeah, we got a few different things today, and most of them are kind of weird, but I thought that everybody would appreciate some of the different things. First off, we're going to have a new season or a new, I guess, like, what do they call them for? They call them series for comics?
Yeah, maybe. Serial?
Yeah, something like that. There are new issues of Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror coming out. And if you're not familiar with this comic, this is actually a comic that you can go back and buy the different volumes of it for the first run of it. And this was actually a really weird combination. It's a take of Edgar Allan Poe's original stories, but adjusting a lot of different things. And people compare it to taking his stories and then like drunk historying it, where it's a really insane, like, it's like, yeah, it's technically the story, the basic plot is the story of his old, tales and a few different things, but then they take it and kind of flip it on its head to be like, oh, that cracking and actually happened and Edgar Allan Poe was drunk and there was all this crazy stuff that happened and but it's like usually like Edgar Allan Poe's stories, but really twisted. They call them seasons. I guess it's called seasons, but
For comics, really?
I guess they call it season. Yeah, it says season 2, issue number 1. So
all right,
but yeah, you can buy the volumes of the first season. I don't know if the actual volume is out yet, but I know that this was a previous comic, and a lot of it is just really insane. A lot of people like the insanity of it, but it's called Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror. But yeah, it actually got a lot of traction this time because the front, I mean, they always have the front covers. They're really funny. Like they have a Psycho parody. They have like a Jaws parody. I mean, keep in mind, it's all with Edgar Allan Poe, like Edgar Allan Poe as the shark. And then in the new one, they have a parody of a famous Captain America cover where it's Edgar Allan Poe actually punching Hitler.
It's kind of like a spooky Mad Magazine.
Yeah, well, I think they have one of the artists from Mad Magazine works on it.
That makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, it's really crazy. I thought I would mention that just because it's Edgar Allan Poe. You Edgar Allan know?
I do now.
Yeah. I thought that was
so bad.
Somebody was really surprised I said that. You know what they said?
What?
Edgar Allan Whoa.
Yeah. More like Edgar Allan. You already used that one, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, they actually were going to adapt it for TV. It's going to be Edgar Allan Show. But I had to keep the volume down, so it was Edgar Allan Low.
Yeah. And the producers in the back were doing Edgar Allan Blow.
Well, it is TV.
Yeah.
Like that. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought you guys would enjoy that. And then we have this is a really weird story. And I thought I would mention it just because it kind of shows, I think, the way that people view death. And I thought this was important. So there's a story of some undertakers, it's like people who help with funeral services. They basically display this coffin in their town. That's what they do. They sell coffins, they help with funeral services, right? That's what they do. But they have a display that has a coffin outside, just like
inside.
Is it inside?
It's in the it's a window display, yeah.
Yeah, it's a window display, but people can see it, like the public can see it.
Yeah, from the street. Like the Christmas decorations that people do
like
in
any
department
display.
stores and whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah, you're displaying the product.
Forever 21, only on Undertakers, right?
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
And I think the name of this town is Goole, Yorkshire. So, Goole.
That's a great name.
People always say I say names of places wrong, but this is probably one of them. But
who cares? It's Goole.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, this story is really, really ridiculous. All these people in the town are offended. They're saying, "Oh my gosh, that's so tacky. Who would do it?" They're complaining about this, and basically the funeral home is just like, "Why do you care? Like, what's the big deal? Like, it's just we deal with, these kind of services, and we are just displaying one thing we do here. What's the big deal?" And people, here, I'll read some of the comments from the people that they got for this this article. It's from the Mirror, and it just lacks decorum. And even my grandson asked me what it was. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, I think this town also has a problem with a bunch of people with celiac protesting the bakery.
Yeah,
with bread in their window. Yeah, because it's just it's just offensive and tasteless for people who can't eat gluten.
It's just ridiculous. It's just like somebody even said, "Oh, everyone's talking about it in the street, and I think it's just disgusting. There's no taste, no decorum, and I wouldn't like to walk past it." It's just crazy because it's just one of those things where, and I've talked about this before, where people don't really have an understanding of death. They're pretty much like, these are the same people who would be like, something would happen and they would just have an absolute meltdown and wouldn't be able to accept it and grieve really horribly because they don't have any kind of perception of death. It's like, there's not a dead person in there. There's nothing. It's just
there's no fake body or anything.
If anything, this is a way to say, hey, here's how you can take care of your loved one after they're deceased,
Yeah.
And if you want to, it's here. Like, and to let them know, like, oh, for most people, it'd be like, where do I even go? What do I do? It's like, oh, here. I remember the coffin. Oh, there we go. This place does it. It's right there. And it's just ridiculous to say that it's distasteful. What's distasteful about it? It's like, It's just another one of those stories where people just don't have any kind of idea about death. They want it completely closed off. They don't want to even have the remote idea that it exists. And then when it happens, they're all shocked and can't deal with it.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous that they get these comments, and we're the same way in America, right? We just don't want, like, I mean, I used to do, mortuary pickup, and no joke, one of the rules, or like one of the things which they always told you was, just make sure nobody sees you. I'm like, why does nobody need to see me? And I'd be coming out of, there's a really famous example. Everyone hated to go do a pickup. It was this hospital in LA, and the way, like, coming out of the morgue, almost right in front of the entrance to the hospital. Right? So it's like the only place to park, the ambulance parking is like right in front of the hospital. So when you come out of the morgue, the only place that you can come out is right in front of the hospital. And in LA, there's a lot of people in front of a hospital.
Yeah.
And so I remember just coming out of this thing, and the people trying to rush me, like, okay, let's get in here, let's do it, And they're like, oh, we don't want anybody to see. It's like, what do you like? Are we trying to treat this body with respect and do what we're supposed to be doing, or are we just trying to get this person on a gurney to rush it into the thing and then get it away from everybody?
Sweep him under a rug real quick.
Yeah, it's like, it's so ridiculous, because the same people will be like, well, you should treat every case with respect, and and you should. And it's like the same thing. We have the same thing in America, where it's like people just can't accept death. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it's a possibility. And it is rough. It's very hard to deal with that kind of stuff. I mean,
it is.
Even, it's harder almost when it's somebody else. Because at least when you're yourself, depending on who you are, like, you can be in a hospital bed all screwed up and be like, look, if I die, that's totally cool with me. Like,
yeah.
But then for everybody else, it's way harder. And that's one of those things where it's like the people who aren't okay with their own death, and the people who obviously aren't okay with seeing, like, they just put somebody else in that spot. Or I don't even know what they're thinking, but they just like, I don't want to see it no matter what.
Yeah.
Like,
those people, they need a good dose of Order of the Good Death. Are you familiar with Order of the Good Death?
Isn't that like a show or something?
Yeah, it was a YouTube channel originally. I don't know what it's evolved into now, but it's I think it's Caitlin Doherty.
I think Mac watches that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And she wrote a book, and now she's actually doing. I think she's co-running a mortuary or something in LA.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll get corrected, but
I'm sure. I think a lot of people, there's some overlap with the fans there.
But I'll bet you that there's going to be some people in the industry who are like, I know exactly which hospital you're talking about.
Oh, probably. Well, it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's just one of those things. And we have people say that all the time. Like, there was one example. There's another hospital where hospitals are a good example, because that's obviously a lot of foot traffic and you pick up from morgues.
Yeah.
So there's this one where at the time they were doing a lot of construction down where, because this particular one, they had the morgue underneath where you check in. So you go down like a big ramp, and then like, you pull into like this underground place.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little parking structure. But there's a lot of construction being done down there. And so a lot of time there'd be a lot of construction workers working on different wiring and stuff down there. And I'd just be, oh, hey guys, whatever, and go in with the gurney, whatever. And this one guy, I mean, literally, it was a really tan dude too. He just turns all pale and is like freaking out. I'm like, oh, hey, it's okay. Like, hey, are you okay? He like literally looked like he was going to pass out. I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, it's totally okay. I was like, the morgue is right there. I mean, they're working on the other side of the wall. But then the second they're actually presented with it, like, it doesn't have that cover, it's like, then they're freaking out.
Yeah, mortified.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you can't see. It's like, you realize it's right there. Like, that door that you're doing, like, the wiring and the lights around for, like, weeks.
That's where all the bodies are.
That's a morgue. Like, and it's just crazy. It's like, I have a strong opinion about that. Like, that sort of thing.
We don't deal with it. We don't deal with it in a healthy way culturally.
No, I mean,
in most places.
Majority of the developed world, because it's like, keep buying the products to distract you from all this other stuff, and then that's one of those things where it's like, when you're presented with it, you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so long as we don't pay attention to it, we'll live forever.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's one of those things. This is one of those stories where it just doesn't necessarily make my blood boil, but I think it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just, everybody can have their opinion on things, and they're entitled to their own opinion. But I mean, saying that this is not classy or whatever, tasteless or whatever, it's like, no, it's just the fact that it exists, and it like offends them that it exists. Like the fact that, it's ridiculous.
I am all for them putting a coffin in the window. but at the same time, I think their position is also a little bit ridiculous.
Is it that one with the Halloween thing or something?
Well, it's just like, oh yeah, how, places do it for Halloween and whatever. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess they do, but it's to be expected because of the season, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's really not the same thing. But I think the other thing is like, they responded like, we've only been in business, for a few months, and this has already happened to us. It's kind of like this isn't like happening to you. This is like a social stigma problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think their response is also kind of like, really, guys? Like,
I read the response. And I was like, it's a pretty dumb response. I kind of my subject kind of got away from the actual place, but like, yeah, I thought I actually do. I don't know if I side with either person on this. I mean, I do think that's stupid that people are offended, but the shop's response is also kind of like, you could have thought this response out a little bit better. It's kind of like, yeah, people hang up Halloween decorations all the time in windows. I'm like, it's a little different.
What about that big scary guy in a red suit with a big white beard?
I know.
Like, what about that?
Yeah, it's not. They don't have a good response to it.
Yeah,
but I just thought I would say that it's ridiculous. I just think it's ridiculous. People get offended by it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the fact that there's even a news article about it is silly.
Yeah, exactly.
Not because it's not worth reporting about, but because the fact that somebody's reporting about it because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Anyway, that's that one, and I could probably do a whole podcast about that kind of social stigma. Maybe we'll make a video about it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna go sad or happy for the next thing.
Both of these are sad.
Well, I mean, it's sad, but also
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it has a good momentum going for it.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Mark Shostrom, I'm really familiar with him. Like, Evil Dead is one of my favorite series of movies ever. Evil Dead 2, freaking amazing. One of the best comedy horror films ever. I mean, just perfectly shot, color grading. It's amazing. Right?
Oh, Donnie.
I know.
Oh, Donnie.
But the makeup artist, Mark Shostrom, did a lot of the creatures and all that stuff, special effects
and stuff. Yeah.
And there was a great team, and he's one of the main members who has come up with a lot of the ideas. You also have God, what's the guy's name? Greg. I forget what the guy's name is. There's a whole team behind him, and I can see them all in my head right now. But they have a whole movie on him too, of that team. But Mark Shostrom also did a lot of stuff for Nightmare on Elm Street. I think he's credited like Phantasm 2. That's not my favorite movie, but still great special effects, right?
Yeah.
But Evil Dead 2 is probably what most people know him for. And he has a GoFundMe. All right, at the time of recording this, they have raised $12,648 of $4,700 for Mark Shostrom. And the reason is that he's basically just having a lot of financial and health problems. And so he made this GoFundMe, and I don't know if they changed the description, but I remember like it was the first day I saw it, and he's talking about like it's a hard thing to do, to admit. He's embarrassed by it. He hasn't worked on a film in 6 years, and he does have some jobs coming up, but he's like months behind on the rent and all this different stuff, and just brutal and really sad. And it's crazy for me to think like, man, like that guy's like, in my eyes, that's like somebody who I'm like, you are like
a master
so famous
of your industry.
Yeah. It's just amazing. I mean, and to think that like he's having that much of an issue, but especially whenever you have any kind of health issues, that's just gonna it just makes stuff so much harder. And especially with his age, probably having a little bit more trouble with that. I mean, you can have health issues at any age, but
but when you're older, it takes longer to heal from anything.
Yeah. And basically he did this to try and just keep it going, like keep himself going with the rent and everything, so he doesn't make it even worse than what it already was. And it's just insane that Mark Shostrom, who I've seen on like so many documentaries about like special effects, and everybody's just like, this guy is so great. It's just Greg Nicotero, that's the guy I was thinking of, like is having that kind of serious of an issue. But horror films people forget, like a lot of people who work on horror movies, like they don't get paid royalties quite as much. They're not really, they may be credited for like they copyright like a makeup design or something, but most of the time the sketches and the creature design and stuff, they're brought from like a director or somebody. They bring it to life. They really bring it to life with the actual sculpting and everything. And
they're paid a little bit of money,
and then
that's it.
That's it. And then they get the credit to say, hey, I did this. Can I get a new movie? That's really the reality of it, is their work may be immortalized, but that doesn't necessarily keep your bills paid.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of examples of that, but
GothCast is for one.
That's a whole different story. I'm immortalized in the worst way. But yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, like, right?
Yeah.
That people do stuff, and then a lot of creative types today, they just barely, you'd be surprised, like how much like work they put into stuff, but then that's like 5% of, any kind of income or something, and it's like people who are like super famous.
Yeah.
So
really good at what they do, and they're well known for what they do, and then they fall into this kind of problem.
Yeah. So I thought I would just point that out, that Mark Sjostrom has a GoFundMe right now. I just was shocked. I got to be honest. I mean, like, I was shocked. I mean, I seriously have spent so much time watching that freaking documentary of making of Evil Dead 2 with all the work he did on that. And I'm just like, wow, that is insane. I was thinking I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street 2 or 3. I think it was 3. The point is, so much great work. And that's just the ones that I just know off the top of my head, really. But he's done a ton of stuff. I think he even did like Men in Black or something.
Wow.
Like, I mean, because you got to remember, like, Greg Nicotero and that company, like, so the other guys who worked on Evil Dead 2,
yeah,
they went on to do like a lot of the major special effects, like for movies now, like any practical effects, like Walking Dead and stuff. They're doing that, and I don't know if he was involved with those guys that much outside of the early work before that company was formed, but it's just crazy that like what happens, it's just like kind of really, really sad.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the good news is that the
3
goal
times
is
the goal.
exceeded. Yeah,
like 3 times it almost.
And let's keep that going. If it's still open, still up, still available,
I'm sure there'll be some way to donate, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. Anyway, in our last story here, we have another really sad one. This is actually just genuinely sad.
Yeah.
This article comes from postpunk.com, but I initially heard this. I saw Sweeney DeVille's post on Facebook. We're Facebook friends. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, really? Oh,
Yeah.
just kind of like I'm friends with Lori Petty on
Yeah,
Facebook?
that's right.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But we have this really sad announcement that Thierry Sobezic, I think that's how you say his name, Sobezic, he was the bassist and co-vocalist for the band Asylum Party, has unfortunately passed away. Asylum Party was, I think they would technically be called like Cold Wave or whatever, but they just have the kind of gothic rock sound that we all love from the 80s. It's just really sad. I mean, it's really sad, it's a bummer that they're not like the most famous band that Goths know, but still a great music, and that's all that matters, is that it was great sound, great player.
Yeah. One of our own has passed away, and that's rough.
Yeah. And he was involved in some other projects. Yeah, it's just a bummer. I'm sorry for anybody, any of the family, anybody who was personal friends with him. I thought I'd mention it, especially since it's a band that isn't quite as popular. It probably won't get as much coverage in the future. But I think it's important to note whenever, these bands who mean a lot to you, even if it's not like your favorite band or not the most million-selling albums, these are still people. And I thought it was kind of a great... like, all these stories are kind of somewhat related. I mean, except for the Edgar Allan Poe one. But, but like, it's kind of just kind of remember, like, it's like time's valuable and all that stuff. So I thought this was something that should be talked about. By the way, you see that Cure video? Not Cure video, Cure movie that we're talking about? Was that actually like came out or something?
I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't seen it. It's like, I swear to God, Facebook or Instagram and all stuff, they're just like always on me. Like, hey, you want to see this? Hey, you want to see this? You want to see this? You want to see this? But it's called The Cure Anniversary 1978 to 2017, live in Hyde Park, London. And you can catch it limited in different places, but this week it's like really new. I mean, people just I'm trying to find a place that has it. I mean, it's just, I don't want to travel to Seattle.
I think everybody's talking about it because nobody can get their hands on it.
Probably. It's like that friggin' Damn documentary. The band, not that damn documentary.
Right.
Yeah, I keep trying to find like showtimes for this. But I don't want to go to Seattle. So, yeah, anyway, The Cure Anniversary 1978 to 2018. I've seen some of the clips from it. I mean, they've been posting some of the clips online. As always, I always say that The Cure still sounds really good. Robert Smith's voice is like freaking like exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how he does it. It's like crazy. He's like melting. Like,
It'll be that's the core. That's his core. So that'll be the last thing to go.
Yeah. Right.
That's where he's keeping all the cold. Right. So all the heat is melting from
melting
the outside in.
The makeup and the hair is melting.
Yeah.
But yeah, he you never heard that?
No.
I said that before. I've said that on the podcast before. I was like, Robert Smith is like melting. I forget I said that on a video, I think too. It's fine. I mean, I say that in a loving way. Of course, I love Robert Smith, but I think it's funny because like people mention the makeup and stuff now, and you're just like, "Whoo boy!" Like, come on, he can make the. I like what I always go back to what my mom said about Robert Smith. She said he has too much money to look that bad.
Oh no, Robert, if you're listening to this, feel free to make fun of us anytime publicly.
Oh, I'm sure he can. I'd be really surprised if he listened to this podcast. But
we could dream.
I could dream. I could definitely dream. Hey, I say it lovingly. I think it's I've spent enough time staring at Robert Smith to be like, make fun of him, out of an endearment.
Out of love.
Yeah, out of love. But you can catch that. Thought I would just mention that, if you're looking for it right now, it's probably somewhere. I don't know. It'll be on DVD. Never. Because they don't make DVDs anymore.
It'll be on the bootleg VHS along with whatever that other video is.
Carnage Visors.
Yeah, Carnage Visors. I can never remember the name of that video.
Yeah, you can buy it. I had the cassette of that. The one that has Faith in Carnage Visors.
Yeah.
But it's no video. It's just the audio from it. Just so stupid. Release that freaking video. That's what should have been released in theaters.
Yeah.
Carnage Visors. Anyway, that's Riggs. This is a mess. A beautiful, beautiful mess. Back to Psycho. Now that we're done with Bates Motel, Psycho 4.
Psycho 4, 1990.
1990. So we're in the 90s. Man, it's crazy. Think about that. The movie came out, the original came out in 1960, and the series spanned 30 years and had the same main actor.
Yeah.
So...
And he does a great job in this version too.
I thought this was, I mean, as much... Psycho 3 is definitely the misfit. I'll say that. And Psycho 4, it has a lot of good elements in it. It has some clunky parts to it. And I'll say that this one might not appeal to everybody quite as much. I think just because of the setup of it. The story is that there's a radio station of super 90s, like late 80s, early 90s radio station.
It is super Murphy Brown looking.
Yeah, it's like the smoke. And by the way, they've used the rotating camera trick a lot in it. And yeah, there's this radio station having basically a discussion about matricide. People who kill their mother, kill their parents. And sure enough, one of the people who calls into the radio station is Norman Bates. Played again by Anthony Perkins, and this was the last time he portrayed Norman Bates. I'll get into that in a little bit. But he calls in, and there's also like a therapist kind of with the radio host talking about it who had treated Norman. He kind of goes on and talks about his life when he was a kid, and a lot of it is told through flashbacks. And so we kind of get to see what made Norman Bates into a killer and the chain of events that happen. And it's a pretty interesting concept, and I think it's done pretty well. It's not the greatest in some aspects, but I liked it,
Yeah, no, I thought the whole radio show context for the flashback, scenes and everything worked really well as far as telling the story. And
it's one of the few ways you could actually do it. I mean, it's just instead of him just talking to somebody like a therapist or telling stories to somebody.
Yeah.
I think it gives it it's a little bit of a twist on that sort of like, oh, I'm telling you my past events, like, oh, he's calling a radio station about, this murders and stuff. So
yeah, the radio host I think is really believable as a radio host, Fran Ambrose.
Yeah,
I don't know why I said Ambrose.
I don't know.
Ambrose. Fran does a great job. Franny. Fran. Anyway, I think Fran did a great job as a radio host. Her character's name is Fran.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know the actress's name.
CCH.
Cece?
Pounder?
CCH something. Anyway,
yeah.
Congrats to you. I can't get your name right, but you did a great job. So if you end up hearing this someday, somehow.
She's in RoboCop 3, I guess.
You did a great job. Totally believable as a radio host.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing worked really well. I think the perspective is well done. I think that there's a lot of suspense between what you're seeing in the past and what's happening in the future, and how that affects life in present day as far as in the movie is concerned. I think they did a really great job of balancing the two and the transitions between the two.
Yeah.
Where he's not speaking into the phone because he's kind of lost in his own flashback. And so when you come back to reality, you're seeing the effects of him kind of reliving those moments in his head.
Yeah, where he's kind of like losing it. It's pretty cool. A lot of people have criticized the movie for saying, oh, it over-explains Norman Bates. I don't think so. I think it actually, a lot of the flashbacks they did made a lot of sense. I don't know. I just thought it worked. I thought it worked. I've literally heard people say, oh, Psycho 3 is better than Psycho 4. I don't know what those people are watching.
Yeah.
But that's definitely not true. If anything, I don't know, like even the cinematography and the way the film is colored, because you have a lot of the, the bright reds and kind of, it's a little bit oversaturated in some points. And like they play with color really well. Even for that, the technical aspects of it are really good. But then you add in just Anthony Perkins being Norman again, and I think it just works. I think it's great. I think it's probably a little bit underrated in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they do creepy really, really well in the movie.
Oh God, some of it is almost too creepy. there is like definitely some weird incestual stuff in this, and some of that is like, okay, this is really weird. The movie definitely goes there, isn't afraid to go there.
Yeah. One interesting thing I noticed is that they put in a little bit of horror for people who actually work with knives on a regular basis. When he was cutting the sandwich, he was dragging the knife edge along the ceramic plate.
Yeah. Oh,
it is terrible practice.
Oh.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
I'm so sorry, Brian.
Yeah, no, I almost cried. It was like one of the most horrifying things I'd seen in the whole franchise.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, dull the heck out of that blade real quick, man.
I'm so sorry.
Just, ruin that edge.
Sometimes, the horrors that are deep within us are the ones that really scare. What am I saying?
I don't know. But yeah, if you work in a kitchen, you may want to avert your eyes during the scene where he's cutting the sandwich, because it's a tragedy and very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really well done. I really liked it, and I would definitely watch that over 3.
The 80s Bates Motel?
And the 89.
I'll watch a lot of things over the 80s Bates Motel.
Yeah. Or the first couple episodes of the newer Bates Motel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about number 4 is it does kind of just skip over because they added in, Mrs. Spool and stuff for, who was Norman's real mom.
Yeah. They
kind of disregard that. It's really intended to be a sequel to just the original Psycho.
Yeah.
But they call it Psycho 4. And then it's called Psycho 4 The Beginning. It's like, well, okay, why do you call it Psycho 4? Why didn't you just call it Psycho The Beginning or something?
Yeah.
If you're going to go with that angle. But, franchises back then typically had 4, like they had the numbers in it, Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Die Hard, Die Harder. I think it's Die Hard, Die Hard. Whatever. Yeah. Rambo First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3. Yeah, it's...
Oh, and Norma Bates was absolutely believably crazy.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
She was insane.
Yeah.
Like I said, the flashbacks.
Great acting.
Almost, it's kind of interesting because I would almost want to see a movie where it's just the flashbacks in order.
Yeah.
Because it does jump around a little bit. I think the best part, and of course, we talked about a lot of spoilers in most movies. This is one where I would definitely recommend, if you're a Psycho fan, to go watch it. But I'm going to spoil everything right now. So I would recommend that you go watch it beforehand if you would like some surprise. Although it probably won't be that surprise. Anyway,
it's been almost 20 years. Get over it.
Yeah, right. It's been over 20 years. It's been almost 30.
Oh crap! I'm old.
I know, right? I know. 1990. Jeez. But yeah, I really like the build up to the last flashback where it actually shows when he poisons his mom and like in the boyfriend.
Yeah,
it's like the last main flashback. I was like, dang. Like they really nailed how creepy he was.
Oh yeah.
With that, and then the build up with watching them die, and like it's horrifying. For better or worse, Psycho 2 almost made Norman more likable because you have a little bit more sympathy for him because in that movie he starts off pretty good,
yeah, and
then kind of his turn, and then with 3, it's just a weirdo. It's just uncomfortable, like, and not in like a ooh, it's so creepy.
Yeah.
This one, when you're watching Norman kill the people, And also, there's the main storyline where he's going to kill his wife because his wife is pregnant. Like in the modern times of the movie, the present time, he's going to kill his wife because like I can't have her get pregnant, you know, because it'll give birth to a monster and all stuff.
Yeah, this is genetic. We're gonna, you know, I'm not gonna give birth.
Yeah.
His wife's gonna give birth to somebody who's gonna end up like him. Yeah.
But like just when they do the flashbacks to him, actually, I think especially that one where he's murdering his mom and then his mom's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is horrifying. And it's because it's so. It's not. I mean, you know, it's obviously overly dramatic for the movie, but like they just let it play out, and that's what's horrifying about it. You know, his mom. You see his mom, like he poisons him and like drink this iced tea, and they just slowly like they start vomiting and then writhing on the floor, and Norman's just watching him, and he's like the mom is sitting up in the chair and she's just like shaking and dying, and like
and he's just staring at her.
Yeah, just staring. I mean, they don't cut away. They just let you watch her die.
Yeah.
And Norman's face, like the kind of no emotion, like he's just maybe a little bit conflicted, but just watching it happen. And it's like, wow, you really get in this movie for the most part. I mean, they try to redeem him at the end, like really quickly.
Oh, you didn't catch on that this was actually not a horror movie? It's a story about how true love conquers all.
Yeah,
you didn't catch that?
Yeah. That's the thing about this movie. They show all this stuff where it's like, okay, yeah, he's really messed up. This is awful. This is horrible. And he went through a lot of stuff and it turned him into this person. And they play it out in a very late 80s, early 90s way where they could have really ended it like definitively. And they kind of left it open to like another sequel, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Where he's like in the psycho house, like his kind of gets his wife into the psycho house, you know, the like his home, his childhood home. It's like, oh, look at all those things. And then he attempts to kill his wife. And she like convinces him that, oh, love overpowers everything and all this stuff. And I actually thought it was pretty cool, like where the house is burning and they show like the flashbacks to all the stuff that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that was well done.
Yeah. So the house is like burning down and then Norman's gets out and there's all these firefighters putting out the thing. He's like, oh, I'm not crazy anymore, I guess. And then his wife's like, oh, that's great. Like, I love you. And let's go home. And then the last shot is or I think one last, I don't know if it's the very last shot, is the basement, and then you just hear like Norman, you know, whatever.
Rocking chairs going like, back and forth.
So it's like, is he really crazy? Is like probably still crazy deep down, or is the horror really over? It's like it's implying that it's not.
Yeah.
It's just, I was just like, that is so dumb. Like everything up to that point like really frames it in a very brutal way, and it's like they have this really cheesy, predictable ending. Like, oh, everything's okay. Like,
yeah. Well, in a way too, it kind of ruins some of the mystery behind whether or not, you know, that it's all in his head, or if there are dark forces at work in the house, right? Because you never, you know, through a lot of the series, you never really know for sure if it's 100% hallucination or if there's evil spirits at work or whatever. Like as far as the premise of the movie is concerned, I'm not talking about, of course, like actual, you know. But anyway, by that happening without him witnessing it, it's kind of saying, oh, there is an evil spirit in the house.
I know.
And you're like, oh, okay.
I know. It's just weird. The ending is really weird. There was a rumor for a lot of years that there was another alternate ending where Norman died or all this. There was like just a rumor, and apparently it is just that, just a rumor. Yeah. It's like that was the ending that they shot. It just is like, to me, it just seems like just not good. I mean, just period. I just did not. When I watched it, I was like, man, that is really cheesy. And plus, it would have been such a good way to end the Norman story. I mean, you don't necessarily want to see him die, but if I knew that was the last one and there couldn't be any more sequels, I'd be totally fine with it. Because, well, anyway, that was the last one he did, and then, but it kind of leaves out like a more open note, and it wasn't continued. Like for that particular series of, you know, that canon. Yeah, it's like that was the end, and it's just, I don't know. The whole movie is really good. That ending is kind of cheesy. Just when it fades out after they're walking away from the house, just turn it off. There you go. Yeah, that's it. Or like when he's like laying inside the flaming house, just he died. Boom. Oh, okay. Credit roll. There's no way he's making it out of this. No way. Yeah, just done. Yeah. So anyway, I really do recommend it. If you're gonna watch the Psycho series, at least this series of Psycho movies, watch 1, 2, 4. Or just, if you want to see young Norman Bates, watch 1 and 4. It's a pretty good series. I just think 3 was so weird. it was, obviously Anthony Perkins directed that one, directed 3. And then with this one, there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened during the production of this one. Initially, it was supposed to be like a black comedy where like Norman Bates is making a television show or a movie or something. And it was going to be like a comedic film where all of a sudden it's like Phantom of the Opera and he starts taking over and killing people. Or some of the actors are like, yeah, in this movie, Anthony Perkins was just so horrible to work with. It was just awful.
Wow.
And then, of course, the big reveal during this was Anthony Perkins was diagnosed with HIV during this movie. And, of course, that was ultimately what led to his death. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in the production of this movie that was really crazy. And it's still a quality film for what it is. I think a lot of people would be surprised. I think it was really one of those like HBO or something. Like it was technically like a made-for-television film, but like the upper ranking of television, not like PBS or something like that. Because it is shot like, if you watch the DVD or Blu-ray, like you can see it's actually shot like really well.
If you work for PBS, sorry, I like PBS.
Psycho 4, I recommend it. You can buy it on DVD, Blu-ray. It's funny. It's funny because you'll often see Psycho 2, 3, and 4 bundled together and never Psycho 1. I talked about this last episode. You always just see those 3 bundled together. I recommend it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, pick it up if you see it. It's worth the $7 or $8 or 10, 15 even.
And when it's going to be included with all the other movies too.
Yeah.
You can find it on the discount bins during Halloween season.
Yeah, Dollar Tree. Yeah.
Maybe not that bad. Anyway, that's Psycho 4. Hey, Brian, you know how we didn't want to see any more Bates Motel?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Well, don't worry, we got a lot more Bates Motel.
Oh, crap.
But this time it's different Bates Motel.
Oh.
But it's still the same.
Oh.
But it's different.
Oh.
But it's kind of the same.
Oh.
Anyway, this is the series of Bates Motel. This is, like I said, there was an 80s Bates Motel TV film, and then this was a successful television show for Bates Motel that came out in 2013 and continued till, I think it was 2017, had 5 seasons, and a lot of people really seemed to enjoy it when it was out. I'll be honest, I never even watched a single episode really like all the way through until we had to watch this for the podcast. I had seen part of an episode, which, by the way, it wasn't even in the episode, even the ones that we watched.
Yeah.
It still wasn't even one of those episodes, so I think it was later in the series. But I knew a lot of people who were really into this show at the time, and it's a more modern take on Psycho.
Kind of.
And we'll talk about that a little bit. But this is the first time in the series that we don't have Norman Bates being portrayed by Anthony Perkins. I mean, we did have the younger version of Norman from Psycho 4, which, by the way, what do you think of the teenage version of Norman inside of Psycho 4?
It's a really hard question for me to answer.
Why is that?
I'm very conflicted.
Because they're very different, right?
Yeah. So when I watched Psycho 4, I'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
So I watched, Bates Motel, then Psycho 4. I think
Bates Motel, the new Bates Motel, and then Psycho 4. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. The new Bates Motel and then Psycho 4. I think that Psycho 4 Norman was very well done, but I don't think he really I think they did a really good job casting in the new Bates Motel compared to Psycho 4. And I know that you disagree.
I totally disagree with that.
So, I mean, I don't, when I say a good job casting, I'm only talking about appearance right now. I have some criticisms of the newer Bates Motel series. And I've got some good things to say about it too, but I think I absolutely like the way that the actor looks for the new Bates Motel series compared to Psycho 4. However, I think that in Psycho 4, the actor who played Norman Bates as a young kid did a heck of a lot better job, at least in the first several episodes of the TV series. I'm going to watch the rest of the TV series after this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, not one after the other immediately afterwards because, I have a life to live. But it's interesting enough that I want to watch the rest of it.
Yeah. Did you skip the episode with the dog?
I didn't. No, I watched it.
Oh.
It actually wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad?
It
Really?
wasn't. I mean, it's bad because you watch an animal get injured, but it could have been done a heck of a lot worse considering the other things that they put in the show.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay.
It was pretty tame compared to some of the other things that they put in there.
Yeah.
So the teenage kids, right, that played the two roles, I think that from as far as how they looked, the Bates Motel, I think, nailed it. The new Bates Motel nailed the look. I think that the actor who played Norman Bates as a young kid in 4 did a much better job.
I also think that it's hard to compare them to because you do have Norman Bates as the teenage Norman Bates in number 4 is so much more like he is timid for a little bit, but then he's so much more vicious immediately, and a little bit more calculating.
Yeah.
But he has such a small amount of time to do it. Like his scenes are when you compare it to just one episode of this TV show,
sure,
it's like the entire runtime of just one episode. And so you don't get to see as much development of it. But I think that's why a lot of people will compare them because, I mean, not only is it teenage Norman Bates in both of them, they're very different. You see a little bit more of the transformation of the one from the TV show and a little more of the experiences, whereas this one, all you just see him is being beat up and treated horribly nonstop. You rarely even see the loving side of it compared to the amount of runtime that there is just for a few episodes of the show.
Sure.
I think it's hard I think when you get to a TV show, especially one that has 5 seasons, it's going to be so much more explored in the character anyway that people are going to be more attached to it. But either way, I think the guy they're just really different. But Psycho 4 is done really well. But the kid from Bates Motel, Freddie Highmore, which my mom is familiar with that doctor show he does, The Good Doctor.
I'm going to watch that too.
She really likes that show. We were watching Bates Motel, and I was like, what is this kid from?
Where do I recognize him?
It was bugging me so much. Yeah. But yeah, then you also have, as Norma now, you have Vera Farmiga.
Sure.
Probably butchered that. But then you also have like a whole bunch of supporting characters. But the main story of this, and the entire time watching this really threw me off, is the opening of Bates Motel. And by the way, it's going to be spoilers, like always. Just letting you know, just because it's a modern show, I guess it's slightly more recent than pretty much anything I've ever covered on this show. So I thought I would just mention that. But it opens with Norman seeing his father and is like bleeding everywhere, and it doesn't say that he's murdered or anything, but Norma seems very calm about what is going on.
Yeah.
And Norman's freaking out. And then all of a sudden they're moving to, and by the way, it was always in California initially, but then now it's in Oregon. They're moving to Oregon. Norma bought a motel, and the Bates Motel, but it's a rundown motel, and she's like, oh, we're going to transform this into the Bates Motel, it'll be our, the great thing. And then when they move into town, I mean, it's obviously really suspicious what happens anyway, where she got the money, all that sort of stuff, or, moving. And then a whole bunch of stuff spirals out of control within the town and everything. And that's a cool concept, I guess. I guess you always, transformation of like, oh, what happened in this time? How did the Bates Motel come to be? Immediately, just a few minutes into the show, I was thrown off so badly by it being actually modern times.
Yeah, it's really important going into this to think of this more like a reboot, because there's so much stuff that just doesn't fit the original line or the original line, whichever line, whether or not
it doesn't fit the book or the movies or the TV spinoff.
They're kind of just using it as a jumping off point to make a TV series.
Yeah, the more we watched it, the more it seemed apparent that it was like, okay, somebody I think had some scripts lying around, and they need to put a name to it that people will watch, and then it ended up being Bates Motel. Because it's really to me, I just noticed it so badly, because you have Norman and Norma who, when you're watching the opening parts of this, you would swear it was like still the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they're driving an older car, they're driving in town, it's all dusty, the motel looks really of that era, the house is really old, it looks just like and then it's like somebody whips out an iPhone, and you're like, what happened here? And like and the girls who are hitting on Norman look completely modern. It just threw me off. I was like, wait, this is actually just like modern times. Norman Bates has an iPhone, but it's still, they keep a lot of the same things where he's like, oh, I'm really into black and white films. And so anytime you see him, he's watching like old televisions with black and white shows on them.
But they don't explain that for a long time. So
Yeah.
you just, like, it's just like he happens to be watching a black and white something.
Yeah.
Every time he's watching a TV show, it's in black and white.
Yeah. And like 4 episodes in, he's like in a hospital and he goes, oh, you watch this old thing? He's like, I like old black and white movies. Oh, okay. So that's, now you're trying to explain it. Like, but him and his mom, they listen to like old vintage records, and it's like their house is stuck in a time capsule. And by the way, they didn't even decorate the house. It's just like the person who lived there before, just their stuff.
Yeah.
So they didn't even decorate it, and they use all this vintage. Everything they do is vintage. It just seems like it's total era. And then all of a sudden, a modern police cruiser pulls up.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what the heck happened?
The anachronism is jarring, for sure.
Yeah. And
For sure.
for
Sorry.
sure.
I'm going to stop saying that.
Okay. There's some pretty harsh stuff in this first episode.
Yeah.
So
Trigger warnings abound.
serious triggers.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with watching anything that involves sexual assault or rape. I really, just makes me sick to my stomach when I watch the stuff. And this had a scene like right in the beginning where the guy who owned the original motel that they bought and like the house that they were living in is like, that's my house, because he defaulted on it and the bank repossessed it. And he comes in and he rapes Norma, and it's Norman like conks him over the head halfway through, like the middle of this happening, but it still is very extremely unsettling.
It's incredibly graphic.
It's uncomfortable. We were watching it together. I was like, wouldn't even able to look at the screen. I was having a really hard time. I was just like, what? I did not expect it.
Yeah.
It was just like,
they don't show any private parts or anything like that so that they can air it on television, but that doesn't impact the amount of uncomfortable you feel in the situation.
It was a lot. I was like, whoa. Yeah. And I think they try to kind of, resolve it within the episode by like immediately after that, after Norman like knocks him unconscious on the ground, and then Norman like just takes out a knife and just stabs him to death. And that's kind of what sets off a lot of the chain of events like that leads to a lot of their problems, is that now they have to dispose of a body. Now all this stuff happens. It's brutal opening. It's like, it's very early on in the episode. It to me, I just felt like it came out of nowhere. I was just like, I did not expect it.
Yeah. It all happened so fast. And I'm pretty sure I remember you and I both yelling at Norma to stab him.
I know, we were just like, yeah, we were.
It was just like, it doesn't matter that she's a crazy person. It doesn't matter that she's abusive to her son or whatever. Like, we were just like, this is
that guy
awful.
That guy's way past. I was just like, we were all just like, and when she started stabbing him, we're all just like, yes, like stab. So it was horrible. I am, like I said, I was, when we were watching it, I was like, I'm glad they resolved that right there. Like, this wasn't going to be some long, drawn-out thing for that.
Yeah.
Of course, the repercussions of murdering him are what kind of...
drawn out.
Yeah, But yeah, that fact that they just, like, show him, like, her stabbing him to death and just going at it, I was like, thank God.
It was definitely surprising and shocking for that. In the place they put it in the episode, in the place they're putting it for the series, and how quickly everything escalated for that scene.
Yeah.
If they were going for WTF, they certainly achieved it.
They did. It is. I was really surprised.
Yeah.
But then, as a result of this, like, this kind of leads me to one of the other weird things about Norman having technology and stuff, is he finds like a book of prostitutes or something like that, like where he's drugged up women,
sex slaves,
and basically tells the story of all these drugs and whatever. He's like, look how shocking this is. I'm like, dude, you have an iPhone. Like, you tell me, like, you don't look up all kinds of weird stuff on there, like, or just,
you're already a weird kid. We know what you look up, man.
Yeah, it's like it's just, it is just really just all that stuff. Just so many anachronisms with his character, because he's just like, he goes to a modern school. There's like, they have all this technology, all this stuff, texting people, whatever. He has a phone. It's just like, and they're just like, oh no, he's just sitting there watching 1960s black and white shows on an old TV.
Yeah. And he has no curiosity about the world around him whatsoever, so he's never ever going to look up any interesting stuff or And in 2013, did Google Translate exist?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
probably
because he couldn't read the Chinese in the book and whatever, and it's like, okay, I don't know. Technology's funny.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff like that, not just like the time period weirdness, but like stuff that just doesn't make sense at all. Like the officers coming in and checking out, and there's a body in the bathtub, and
he just doesn't notice it.
He doesn't notice it. They don't smell the blood, which if you've ever, been around a lot of blood, you definitely smell the iron from a lot of blood.
Oh yeah. I used to work in a mortuary. I mean, when you walk in a room where somebody's like bleeding out or has blood out, it stinks. I mean, it stinks.
Yeah.
Like it's a very distinct smell, let alone if you're in like a 2x2 bathroom.
Yeah.
And you're a police officer.
Yeah.
There's like it.
You would notice that stuff.
It was.
And then Officer Shelby's like attitude of like, yeah, man, we run this town like the mob. It's cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's a whole... Okay, so Norman starts unveiling this plot about like, like there's a ton of corruption in this town, whatever, and which is so funny because that's the exact opposite way of what the 80s and 90s version portrayed is like. It was always like, oh, this is just a nice town, whatever.
Small, quaint town.
And then, the sheriff being like, well, we don't, we're just a kind city folk here, kind town folk, whatever. And then this is like, we're the craziest town you ever seen, like it's like, who cares? But yeah, the whole town is like 100% corrupt, and like there's all gangs, and the cops are like part of gangs, and all the sex trafficking and drugs, and people are being burned alive all the time.
Oh yeah, like there's a burned alive dude hanging from a sign, and the cops are just directing traffic. They're not putting him out, they're not cutting him down, they're just directing traffic.
Yeah, because
it's Tuesday.
Yeah,
that happens
in the middle of a town. The guy, there's no joke. The guy's on fire, hanging upside down, and there's cops just like, "Yeah, go that way." I'm like, when we watched it, I was like, "Shouldn't they be putting him out?" like, that's because
it's easier to clean up if they just let him burn,
Oh my gosh, it was just so weird.
Yeah.
The thing that was frustrating for me, and I don't know what episode we realized it. I think maybe it was just episode 2 or something like that. I was just going, yeah, this just became a generic show that has Norman Bates in it.
Yeah.
Like
it definitely feels like they're just using the name to get
an
audience at first, and then
it became like a weird mystery cop drama type thing all of a sudden, and it was just really, it's not bad, but it was just okay. I mean, because after the whole psycho aspect of it kind of just done in like the first or second episode, it's like, okay, well, what are we watching? And we're watching a mystery about like somebody trying to date a cop who is like a psycho, or has a unstable mom who is manipulative, and then also more manipulative cops, and then more manipulative gangsters, and then Norman also has a brother, a stepbrother. Yeah. And you get...
we didn't mention the brother, but there's a brother.
Oh.
There's a brother up there, and they don't mention him for a long ass time.
Yep.
It's just all of a sudden there's this other guy there. Oh yeah, that's my brother.
And then he's like, what's so funny is his brother, like you have Norman and Norma, who are like so stuck in this time period, like the 60s, like late 50s, like style and everything and their mannerisms. And the brother shows up, is like, yo, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
And he's totally a modern person. And it makes Norman and Norma seem even weirder, because they're stuck in this like this ideal 1950s home sort of atmosphere thing, and are just really manipulative and don't really have any kind of link to the outer world. And then you have the brother who's like, it's cool, dog. It's just so strange.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. The one thing that I'm looking forward to see if they get into is why that other officer is always wearing so much eyeliner.
Oh, the guy who has the dark hair or whatever?
Yeah, I'm not bagging on him. I don't think that's a problem. I'm just curious why he does it.
I don't know. It's probably something that they think enhances his eyes, or I don't know something.
But you called it with Emma, the one that has the breathing tube and the gas canister. They absolutely do the whole pretty her up transformation.
Oh, I call that. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it. I called it.
They're kind of frumping her up a little bit so that they can make her look pretty later. And they definitely.
I knew it. I know. I was like, yeah, she seems like they just kind of curl that hair up and make it seem frumpy as Yeah. I mean, I watched. Was it 4 or 5 episodes? And then you watched the entire series. I mean, entire season.
Entire season, yeah.
Yeah, season 1. Did it get worse or did it get better from what I saw?
It got better. So the first several episodes, the writing is very, very clunky. It kind of feels like something that inexperienced writers might put together. It did remind me of some workshop stuff that I did.
Yeah.
Like late high school, early college years. Mm-hmm. I think they kind of figured out how to make it flow better and not seem so poorly written.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I almost forgot. Wow. You reminded me of how bad some of the writing is in the first few episodes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
okay.
I'm sorry I reminded you of that. I suck.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Just to give you an example of how bad some of the writing is. So they have like a few scenes where Norman's talking to his mom. And she's like, why do you love me? Whatever. He's like, our hearts are connected, mother. And it's all just the way that they say it's so overly dramatic. It doesn't feel natural at all, even for the character of Norman, who is socially awkward. And then there's this whole thing where, what is he frustrated at? Why does he get frustrated? The point is, Norman does something and he gets really frustrated at himself. And he just walks up to him, storms up, and goes, I suck. And it just, that's like so bad.
Especially when he's using words like peculiar.
Oh, yeah.
And he's quoting Jane Eyre. And then his go-to, this guy who's completely anachronistic and watches old movies, his go-to insult for himself is I suck.
I suck.
I don't know, man. It's just so off.
It was weird. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's better. I mean, I might end up watching it, more. I mean, I probably will anyway, just because it's on Netflix.
It's entertaining. Yeah. I mean, for as much crap as I can talk about the first several episodes, right? It worked. I watched it. I want to watch more of it.
We kept watching more episodes. I mean, we were only going to watch 2. I was like, okay, usually first episode is really clunky for a series. And usually the second is kind of when it's actually becomes a show. Like Mad Men. I always remember Mad Men. They filmed the first episode for Mad Men. And that's like the pilot one. Yeah. The same one that, is considered season 1, episode 1. And then they couldn't get anybody to pick up the show. And they had to film the second episode 2 years later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they look exactly the same, but that episode was filmed 2 years later.
Dang.
And it's like they had a little bit more refined immediately scripts.
Yeah.
And so Bates Motel, I mean, I was enjoying it. I mean, I might check it out more, but it was.
I am kind of surprised that somebody picked up the pilot.
Oh, for the original Bates Motel?
Well, no. For this Bates Motel. I'm surprised that somebody picked up the pilot because it wasn't very good. I think the fact that it got better or whatever is great, right? I'm excited to. I don't know. Maybe I'm not excited. I am interested in seeing the rest of the episodes.
You are accepting that you will be entertained.
Yeah, exactly. I have a certain level of engagement that has been achieved through marketing and deception.
Wow, man, if I could just print that out for every review.
Right. But based on the first couple episodes, I am actually pretty surprised that it even made it beyond the pilot.
Yeah, I agree. It is weird just because I do remember at the time somebody I was seeing was watching that show and them trying to explain it to me. I was like, oh, what happened with this? And then the whole thing about it's modern times. I was like, what do you mean it's modern times? Like, oh, well, like Norman and stuff. Like he's like what he normally is like, but then he has like an iPhone and stuff. Like, what do you mean? And then watching it now is just as weird as I thought that would be.
Yeah, it's very strange when you see them in the Bates house and they're whipping laptops out.
Yeah. Well, it's even crazier just because the set design. I gotta give them credit on the set design.
Oh yeah, no, they did a great job with that.
So just the Bates Motel set is so great. it looks like, you know, a TV-ified version of the original house, and like the motel itself is, you know, like that. But then of course everything else is just typical cop drama town. Yep. Oh, by the way, they filmed it in Canada. So he's like, we're down in Oregon. You're really in Canada. We know you are, Norman.
Yeah. Well, they had to move, you know, the fake location to Oregon so they could film in Canada because there's just so many trees. Nobody would believe it's in California.
Way it's California.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on the Universal backlot.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have to say about Bates Motel. I mean, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I mean, I feel pretty middle of the road about it. It's slightly better than, I guess, what the average show would be, but I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily to my taste.
I'm into drama and suspense, and even if it's not done incredibly well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking to a guy who watched Vampire Diaries.
All right. I don't know if the viewers could see my face just now. I was pretty shocked.
Well, I mean, when you've got nothing else to do. God, man, did I just admit that? I did. I just admitted that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, I watched that, and I watched True Blood.
Well, True Blood is, you know, you could justify that one.
Suga's mine.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. No, I mean, but they're along the same lines. You know, it's not necessarily super serious. Like, it's not going to be critically acclaimed. It's not going to win a ton of awards or whatever, but it's entertaining.
What did they call it? There's like a word where they call that. It's like, they don't call it white bread. They call it, it's like a thing where it's like, is it gonna be like the most amazing meal you're gonna eat all day? It's like, no, it's gonna fill you up, but you know,
yeah,
like, it's not like gonna make you think that much. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's a show like that. I feel like there's something else I was thinking of, but anyway, yeah, I mean, go take a look. And probably since most of the people listening to this, well, I actually don't know about in other countries, but I know a lot of people listening to this in America probably have Netflix, so you can go watch it right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you listen to this way later, it's not on Netflix. Don't message me saying it's not on Netflix, because years ago we did an episode called it was something like great movies that you can stream right now, and it had like whatever the movies were, none of them are on Netflix anymore.
Of course not.
And like you can't stream it. It was, I think it was like 2015 or 2016 or something where we reviewed them, and none of those movies like that. The name of that episode is just totally irrelevant nowadays because it's movies that you can buy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bates Motel. Some other pieces of trivia I wanted to. Is that all you want to say about Bates Motel? Or you want to say anything else?
No, I just really want to know if that cop's a closet goth. That's really what it comes down to.
Oh, snap!
And you know, I want to know why he's wearing all that eyeliner. Is it a fashion choice, or was it just
pretty
the makeup
weird.
department?
He does seem like he's wearing a ton of makeup in that show.
Yeah,
it's distracting. Plus, that hairline is so weird. The way, I don't know, they made some weird design decisions with him. Anyway, I thought I would throw in some other Psycho stuff in here, just because I can. Remember that video I showed you, where it was the Psycho, like ride?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. So after Psycho 3 was done, they had the set up there. I think it was Psycho 3 when they built the big old Bates Motel set. And I think it's still, you can, I don't know if it's part of the main tram ride anymore. You can go on it. I think it's like a special tram ride that you can go on, where when you pass by, it looks like some Christmas Grinch town or something. I don't know. When you pass by it, then you'll drive the tram ride for the theme park, Universal Studios, will drive past Bates Motel, and you'll see like Norman like putting a body in the trunk, and then he runs up with a knife up to the tram,
and they drive away quickly, all panicked.
Yeah.
Oh no, he doesn't look like he wants us around here or whatever.
Remember that video we watched where it looks like the Norman, and he'd done it like 700 times that day, and he just kind of gives up. He's like, you get it.
Yeah. I'm all sweaty.
Yeah, I gotta do another tram ride coming up right here. Take this body and put it in the thing. Right. Take this body, put it in the thing. Take this body, put it in the
no, he keeps having to take it back out again and put it back in the house too.
I know.
Man.
And by the way, contrary to popular belief, Anthony Perkins, his last movie role was not Psycho 4. There were some other film appearances after Psycho 4. I don't think anything that is like that dramatic. Okay, some other quick things I wanted to mention here. If you're a Psycho fan and you just want all the, well, I guess I always talk about weird random facts anyway, is if you are looking for kind of a dramatized version of some of the events that led to Psycho, you can watch the movie Hitchcock and it details. So I mean, the movie is about Alfred Hitchcock's life around the time that he was making Psycho. It's not necessarily just focused on, Psycho in that way. It's focused about the relationship, Hitchcock, what he was going through personally, but that is included in that film. Also, of course, as Psycho as a series has been, released like a million different, or has been referenced a million different times in popular media. Every single cartoon ever in history has done a parody of the Psycho shower scene with a knife and all that different stuff. Also, there was some comics or graphic novels released that I think were related to Psycho 2. And nowadays, they're apparently very hard to find a physical copy of them, and because who the hell would repress the Psycho 2 graphic novel? Probably whatever the equivalent is to Shout Factory for graphic novels. But, yeah.
Sign the petition.
That's it. Bring it back. There's also a really good documentary called The Psycho Legacy that talks about a majority. Well, it's actually the only documentary I know of that actually talks about all of the main series Psycho films. But it's just, it's so weird that probably when we started this, the only thing, at least right now, I feel like most people only know Psycho or Bates Motel, the new series of Bates Motel. And so I'm glad we got to shine a little bit of light on the other films, the awful, horrible Bates Motel 80s film. And did you have fun, Brian?
I did.
Yeah?
I had a great time.
Would you have ever watched these if it hadn't been for GothCast?
No.
Yeah, right?
No. But I'm glad I did. Even the 1987 Bates Motel.
Oh, man. We always will be able to reference that.
It's true.
Surfer Chicken Dude. It's just,
it's my day off, man.
My day off, man. It's so bad.
Supposed to be grinding some gnar.
Alex, we gotta. I was trying to do Lori Petty, but I was still stuck on the Surfer Dude. Anyway, this has been Psycho Part 2. I think that's it. I think we talked about literally everything we can possibly talk about with Psycho related to it. I mean, there's supposed to be a new documentary coming out soon about Psycho, but as far as I know, that's not out. But, I mean, honestly, if you're going to watch it, The Psycho Legacy is the way to go. I don't actually have that DVD, which means I probably need to get that DVD. I don't have any DVDs.
None. Not a single one. Except for this massive shelf over here.
I know what you're talking about. Anyway, this has been GothCast. I've been Dr. Sanders.
And I've been just Brian.
You're just Brian. You are just Brian, but you were just Brian.
I've been. I am. I will continue to be.
Hope you've enjoyed this episode. And, of course, make sure to stay spooky.